Hi, and welcome back to Stop Being Sold. My name's Michelle, and I'm here with Brian. And today we're discussing why so many of us feel like something isn't right with the economy, yet experts, the media, and even the White House keep telling us otherwise. Now, Brian and I review the comments that you leave us, and the one thing that sticks out is how pissed off people are right now. They're
Definitely.
feeling the pinch every time they take out their wallets. So, one thing is clear though, is the divide between consumer sentiment and the economic data continues to widen. And just look at these headlines, they say a whole lot. The US economy is doing well. President Biden wants to know why so many Americans are still feeling bad. The economy isn't sick right now, economist says. Here's why Americans still feel like it is, and why Americans are so down on a strong economy. Now, Brian, there's a lot to unpack here. There's the data, and then there's the narrative that we're being force fed, and then what people are actually feeling and experiencing day in and day out. So I want to start with the facts. Let's start with the data.
For January, the CPI number, the consumer price index was up 0.3% versus a 0.2% estimate.
Yeah.
Core CPI minus food and energy rose 0.4% versus the 0.3 estimate. And food and shelter were both up greater than expected, with shelter up 6% for the last 12 months.
That's crazy.
Then we go to the PPI number. Wholesale prices rose more than expected in January also. The PPI rose 0.3% for the month, the biggest move since August of last year. And economists had been looking for an increase of just 0.1%. So what does this mean? Inflation stubborn and rates may need to be held higher for longer.
Yeah, they do.
And this means that the Fed won't lower rates as many times as the stock market had already predicted. Let's take a look at this chart. Currently, the odds are showing that there's an 89.5% chance of them staying at the current rate. That means basically no move. But just 1 month ago, there was a 34.5% chance of them staying where they were and a 63.1% of a rate cut in March. It ain't happening.
No, I don't think it can.
It
All right.
can't.
I want to, one thing we talked about PPI, CPI. I want to talk about the job reports.
Ugh.
They've updated these reports for the last 12 months in a row. Like, that's not normal, is it?
No.
More to the point, are they fudging these numbers to make us all think that the job market is stronger than it is?
You know, it's normal to have conflicting numbers for a month or so.
Right.
But honestly, not 12 consecutive months in a row. Economists have been scratching their heads as to whether the labor market is really as strong as the latest unemployment report indicates. And statisticians are throwing a fit about these numbers, saying these numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
According to private payroll processor ADP, U.S. employers hired 455,000 new workers in June. Meanwhile, in its monthly tally, the Bureau of Labor Stats said 105,000 new workers were hired. 350,000 person difference.
That's a
But
huge difference.
where'd that come from? But for August, the two arrived at similar estimates, with the ADP reporting 177,000 new workers and the BLS reported 187,000 new hires.
Huh.
It's not uncommon for ADP and the Bureau of Labor Stats to arrive at quite different answers.
Okay.
At the same time, it's not unusual for them to be similar, but they almost never arrive at the exact same number. This begs the question, how many workers were really hired in any given month last year?
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?
It is. It is.
So real quick, back to my original question. Do you think that they're fudging these numbers to make us think the job market is stronger than it is? I mean, at some point we can speculate, but you could just call a spade a spade. What do you think?
Great question. I look at it this way. I've been in the business a long time, and I've never seen such disparity in these numbers. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
One or the two is telling us the wrong information. It's that simple.
And have you ever seen them go back 12 months in a row?
Never. And neither has a lot of the economists on Wall Street. It doesn't make sense.
In the news lately are the surge of layoffs that happened in 2023, which is interesting because we didn't hear much about it during 2023. According to a new report by Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, they found that companies planned 721,677 job cuts last year, which is a substantial increase from the 363,000 plus layoffs reported in 2022. The problem could get worse in 2024 as the labor market continues to soften in the face of high interest rates and stubborn inflation.
Definitely.
So, Brian, what's interesting here, as I alluded to a minute ago, is that we heard almost nothing of these layoffs in 2023. Like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. We never heard
Right.
any of that. We did hear a few here, few there, but
Right.
we did not see headlines like this.
No, we didn't. We mostly saw headlines on how low unemployment was and how great the jobs market was.
Right.
But now we're moving into 2024. We're starting to see companies announce layoffs on a daily basis. We're seeing major cuts across multiple industries.
Hmm.
And honestly, you want to see what we're talking about? Google for the list of layoffs year to date to see actually what's going on here. There's a lot of layoffs coming and that have been announced since January 1.
I want to shift focus here. There's conflicting official economic data reporting, right? And then
Yes.
there's how the data is being reported. I think it's personally, I think it's a critical distinction to make because it's not just the reports, but the reporting of the data.
Sure.
Got to take both of them into consideration. So I want to talk about the media's role and the disconnect between the economy and consumer sentiment. And I'd include the White House in this and its mouthpieces as well. So what I'm seeing is that the media is picking up on good data or on some new survey that only surveyed 500 people or something like that, that shows its positive economic sentiment.
Sure.
And then they're repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And almost every headline is the same. It almost feels like they're force feeding a specific narrative on us or gaslighting us to think that things are better than they are, or shaming us if we feel otherwise. And I think that these headlines that I'm showing right now are just perfect examples of this. I mean, why Americans hate a good economy? Wow. And inflation is your fault. So stop buying things. It's the level of
I didn't quadruple the price of eggs. It's that simple.
wow.
Inflation's not the fault of the average American.
No.
If you're struggling to pay the bills or spend too much of the grocery and you're trying to make ends meet, it doesn't feel good to hear, shut up and enjoy how great our economy is. Which is kind of the narrative that we're hearing.
Well,
And back to your point there on how the media presents it. Here's a headline comes on. It doesn't matter what channel it is. I get flipped to 5 different other channels right consecutively after each other, and they're all 5 saying the exact same thing. Hello, did someone send out a press release to all these channels to hey, we got to say this today word for word? Come on.
yeah.
America is not stupid, folks.
No, they're not. And you and I have had these conversations before about just what I believe you told me that your electric bill was up 145%.
145%.
Over last
Totally
year.
crazy. I don't know how people on a fixed income are actually doing it today.
Well, they're not. And
They're
that's why
not.
we're seeing consumer sentiment data like this. I'll pop it up on the screen here. I mean, look at this. Majority of Americans say they're worse off financially under Biden. But then we're hearing, hey, why do you hate a good economy? And there's a lot of disconnect here.
Massive disconnect. Here's the deal. The average person is hurting, period.
Yeah.
Never have we seen household debt and Americans using credit cards more than ever. This chart says it all and paints a bleak picture of what's actually going on with American households today. Just look at these numbers.
Yeah, the blue is housing debt and the red or pink, whatever you see, is non-housing debt. It is unbelievable.
Yeah. And according to the New York Fed data, total household debt rose by $212 billion to reach $17.5 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2023. And credit card balances increased by $50 billion to $1.13 trillion over that same quarter. And mortgage balances rose by $112 billion to $12.25 trillion.
Wait a second. Sorry. Mortgage balances rose from 112 billion to 12.525 trillion.
They rose an additional 112 billion in one quarter.
Oh my God. Okay, got it. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
and auto loan balances rose by 12 billion to 1.61 trillion, and that has been an upward trajectory since 2011. So, and we won't even go
Yikes.
back to what my issue with that is. But every time a bill is introduced, it affects us in ways that were unforeseen.
Yeah.
And that's about the same time frame as that program that came out, Cash for Clunkers.
Right.
Go back and watch that, because that changed the pricing of autos in the
Sure.
United States forever.
Yeah, it did.
Michelle, it's like this. We've never seen this amount of people take on this amount of debt that can only make the minimum monthly payment, which means they're never going to get that debt paid off ever.
And not, no, they're not. And not to mention the rise in delinquencies. We've got credit card and auto loan delinquencies are continuing to rise, and notably among young borrowers. It personally seems to me that interest rate cuts have, well, interest rate cuts have affected the middle and lower income classes.
They have. And when you have inflation eating away at your purchasing power, it's more expensive to live, and you have to borrow to make ends meet, and rates are higher. And according to where we are right now in the cycle, this cycle is going to continue for longer.
Right. Well, it's a vicious cycle, but I love what you said earlier. Shut up and enjoy the economy.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what we're saying, hearing on a daily basis.
What we're hearing.
Yeah. And it's, you know what, Michelle, this, it's a vicious cycle, and it's not one that's going to end anytime soon.
No. Well, and it'll end poorly when it does. So one last question before we wrap this up. This has been an interesting, just we're here talking today about this. How do people protect themselves against, I mean, is the thing to do just not to take on debt if you can afford to? Like, what's the thing that, if we can give someone one action step today, what would it be?
Do not take on any more debt that you know you will not be able to pay off in the immediate future.
Okay.
And that's got to be my number one thing. Just don't take on that debt today. It's bad where this is going to. So
yeah. All right. Well, if you like the content of this video, if you like this, found this discussion insightful, hit that like button. Help us grow our channel, please. Send this video to anyone you know. Share it. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Brian and I put out videos on the daily that help you make the best decisions for your financial future, or in the case of this video, help you just think through what's going on. There's a lot being thrown at us where, Brian, you mentioned it earlier, when this crazy 24/7 news cycle, and a war for our minds is waging right now. So
yeah, definitely
important to step back and look at the facts. All right. Thank you so much for this, Brian. And as always, thanks to everyone who watched.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.